Yeah, good stuff, man. Uh, yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So I did. The first song was "Take Five," Dave Brubeck. The second song, uh, "Falling in Love with Love." The third song, "Blue Bossa," and the fourth song was "Morning Sunrise." And those are all considered jazz standards. So I just did four really cool jazz standards in a row. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Just be able to blast out those jazz standards one right after the other. That's what you got to do when you're playing a show. Is like I was wanting to do that, and then like do something like that with a full band, but instead of just playing straight guitar, put it through a chorus and a wah pedal, and get a wah sound to it. I think that was really sound. I think people would dig that. You know what I mean? So I was thinking about something like that. I think that would be different. Instead of just playing just straight jazz with a clean guitar. I wonder how people would react to the wah pedal sound. And I think that would sound badass, man. I really do. Just to like start blasting out jazz standards with a wah pedal, do like a rock version of it. Rockish jazz. They'd be like, "What the hell?" You know what I mean? It might make some of the old timers mad though. The old jazzers, they might get mad. They might say, "Well, that's not the traditional way to do it." But hey, if it sounds good, man, that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to get a modern sound. I think guys like Larry Carlton would appreciate that because he kind of did that too on some of the stuff. He would like put sound effects in there and make it sound really good, really hip. And I think that's cool to do that. So I've been playing a while. Let me see what the chats are. Oh, let me see. In Falling in Love with Love, you got uh, E major 7 to C sharp 11, um, then F sharp 9, F sharp minor 9, B 13, and you go back to the E major 7. Then here you go to this A flat 7, and then you go to D flat minor 7, and then up here to again to F sharp 11 with the open string there, and then back to E major 7, and then you have C sharp minor 7 sus 2, and you got F sharp minor 7, B 13, and E major 7. That's basically the chords for Falling in Love with Love, you know. And then I was using I kind of modified this a little bit, this Morning Sunrise, and I put this sharp 5 chord in here. So that one right there would be uh, B minor 7 sharp 5, you know. Let's see, how to know guitar sound dull or lifeless. If I buy a used guitar, how to know? Oh, uh, just on each string, go about to the seventh fret and just start hitting each string, noting each one. Just go straight down and see if you get a clear sound. And if it's clear there, then you go to the 12th fret and you do that. And then you go to about the 17th and do that and see how that sounds. If it sounds out pretty clear, then you got a nice guitar. You know, that's the way I do it. I check it, and if it sounds out pretty clear, it's probably a nice guitar. Set forward a little bit. And you also got to mess with the amp settings. If you got bad amp settings, it's not going to sound good. You know what I mean? So you whatever, you try to play it through a nice amp. If you're going to buy a guitar, play it through a nice amp and check your sound settings and make sure you have, the appropriate sound settings to that should sound good with your amp and stuff. And then, you know, if you got the sound settings and stuff right, and you test it like that, then it should tell you, whether you have a good, nice guitar or not. You know, I love jazz, so I like playing all kinds of music, but jazz is the most challenging type of music you can play. I would say out of every type of music that I've studied, because in jazz you have a lot of expression. Yeah, 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 yeah. No problem, sir. No problem. Um, so yeah, it's just when you buy a guitar, bring somebody along with you who knows something about guitars. If you can, bring somebody along with you who knows something about guitars. If not, bring somebody along with you anyway, or ask some people how you think that sounds. And try to get a good sound. Try to get a nice sounding guitar. You don't want to buy something that you can't note. You know what I mean? Sometimes you see these guitars and the strings are way up here. Don't fool with that. You know, you have to be able to note it. So you make sure you can make chords on it and stuff. Because you don't want to buy something that you can't use, right? So make sure the chording and stuff. Check the chording and the notes that you play. So it's like jazz. I like jazz because it's more expressive, and it's most challenging because you got to try to get expressions out of your guitar solos. It's not so much about speed and everything. It's about getting expressive sounds out of what you're playing. You know what I mean? See what I'm saying? And that's obvious jazz right there. You can obviously tell that that's jazz. So you want to sound. That's why I like jazz because it's more the style of jazz I play is there's different types of jazz, but the style that I play parallels that of if you listen to Grant Green, really a lot of Grant Green style is in my style. Grant Green, guitarist, jazz guitarist. He was a famous jazz guitarist at one time, and my style parallels his style a lot. I listened to him a lot. I was thinking, wow, we have very similar very similar styles of playing the guitar. Pat Martino, but I would say I'm more of a Grant Green type style than Pat Martino. Even I really have a style a lot like that guy. You know, when I heard him, I just loved his playing. So that's basically the type of jazz that I play. I don't play. You know, there's different types. There's, of course, it's very sophisticated. There's more. I mean, I don't know about more sophisticated. There's different types of sophisticated jazz. You know, Django Reinhardt, who plays completely in a different style than I do. I don't play his style. You know, I like him, but you know what I mean. Larry Carlton, somewhat. Some of the stuff that I play sounds something like him, but again, we don't have styles that much alike, really. Grant Green, I think, is the closest one that I found in jazz to my style. You know, we really. I wish I could have met the guy. Unfortunately he's passed away. You know what I mean? Because he was one of the older jazz greats. You know, but wow, I was listening to a lot of his stuff and his solos and stuff, and he does stuff that I do. You know, like stuff I thought I made up. He was doing it, man. So I'm like, okay, okay. So that's kind of more my style right there. I mean, I'm even more of a Grant Green. My style even parallels Grant Green more than it does George Benson because or somebody, you know. I mean, I don't really sound that much like Benson. I can play some of his stuff, but when I play it, it sounds I have a different style than him. It sounds good, but it's a different. You know what I mean? It's kind of like comparing comparing Pat Martino to George Benson or Schofield, John Schofield, which I kind of have a style like him too, Schofield. So it's a cross between my style, my jazz style is a cross between Grant Green and John Schofield because I listen to a lot of jazz guitar players out there, and I have to admit, you know, it's kind of in that direction, you know. Those guys are great though. I mean, you know, but each one has a different style, and you know, sometimes people get fixated on one style and they think if people don't play in that style they're not good, but that's not true because there are so many different styles, you know, and I love all of them equally. You know what I mean? I love Pat Martino as much as I do George Benson. I mean, music. I love Pat Martino's music as much as I do George Benson's music, and vice versa. But those are two completely different. If you listen, go listen to Pat Martino Oleo, and go listen to George Benson's Breezin' album, and you know what I'm talking about. That's two completely. They're not even related. Their styles are not even related, not even remotely related. And I thought it was kind of weird when Martino played with John Schofield because they don't really have styles that are anything alike, you know. And sometimes that I mean it sounded pretty good. They're both great. I'm a fan of both of them, but sometimes you get clashing styles, man, because two guitar players have styles that are so far apart that it just doesn't work for them to really, you know, play on the same stage together that well, you know. Um, it kind of like if you had Larry Carlton, if you watch Larry Carlton playing with Les Paul, when Larry Carlton played that jazz number with Les Paul. Now compare that to what Steve Howe played, and they were both great. But compare the two styles, and you would say, hey, you wouldn't want those two on stage together because it would sound really weird. You know what I mean? Because they got their styles are so different. I like them both about equal, but they have their styles kind of clash. You know what I mean? Steve Howe's style, I think, more fit what Les Paul did. Though his style is more like Les Paul. Um, Larry Carlton's style is more like Wes Montgomery. Um, you know, I'm talking about when he's playing jazz. It don't sound like Wes when he does not playing jazz, but when he plays jazz, he's kind of got a style. You can hear the Wes Montgomery in his playing. Like if you watch him with his son, and it's a fantastic concert, the Lugano concert in Switzerland. If you watch that, where he's playing with his son. I mean, he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. But if you listen to him and then you go and listen to Steve Howe, you're gonna say, "Well, yeah, that's completely different different things that they're going. They're going in completely different directions." So, but there's this thing now where some people wants everybody to sound exactly alike. They want all guitar players to sound exactly alike. If you don't, then you're not modern. That's not true, man. I mean, and if it gets like that, it's bad. It's a bad thing because if everybody sounds alike, then what's the point in seeing different people play? Because they all sound the same. You know what I mean? Um, it's like a rock concert, like going and seeing Black Sabbath, and then you go see Aerosmith, and you're like, they're both fantastic. They were both fantastic. I seen Black Sabbath on their Sabbath Bloody Sabbath album tour, and then I seen Aerosmith on their Get Your Wings tour, and about equal, but different styles. I loved both concerts about the same. You know what I mean? Because Aerosmith kicked ass, man. Especially with that Get Your Wings album. Train Kept It Rolling, all that stuff. They did Train Kept Rolling and Seasons of Wither and all that. Same old song and dance, all that cool stuff. And then Black Sabbath did all their stuff. Sabracadabra, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, A National Acrobat, and all that stuff off their album. And it's like two different they got two different styles completely, um two different rock bands, you know what I mean? So, and that's the same thing with guitar players. You might have, you can't, how are you gauging, if you watch me play, how are you gauging my playing? Are you gauging my playing against Guthrie Govan? I mean, Guthrie plays more technical, really. I mean, I play pretty technical, but he maybe plays more technical, but we have completely, our styles are nothing alike. My style is nothing like Guthrie Govan's. And so, when Guthrie did that, playing in the style of Larry Carlton, people were wanting me to do it, and they said, "Well, can you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm going to kind of do my own thing on it." So I took some of Guthrie's licks and I put them in there, but then I went in my own direction, and people were like, "Well, yeah, it sounds good, but it's not like what Guthrie did." I wasn't trying to be like Guthrie, you know what I mean? Style makes, yeah, that's it. That's what I was trying to say. Different styles. Yes, did Stevie Ray Vaughan sound like Jimmy Page in any way, shape, form, or fashion? They sound completely, that's two different phenomenal guitar players. Page was a phenomenal guitar player. In his later years, I think Page for his chord structures more than his guitar solos. But in his earlier years, it was more of his guitar solos. I mean, if you listen to Achilles' Last Stand, man, ooh, he does some really cool twists in that, man. And so it's like Page was a genius, man. Page for coming up with creative stuff. And I've heard people say, "Well, Page wasn't really a guitar player; he was a writer," and that's not true. He was a fantastic guitar player, but he had a style that was different from other people, and that's why I liked him so much, because when I heard Jimmy Page, I knew, that, hey, that's Jimmy Page. That's not Tony Iommi. And Tony Iommi equally as good, I think, but different styles. Their styles are complete. Did Tony Iommi sound like a Richie Blackmore, or did Richie Blackmore sound like Jimmy Page, or Jeff Beck, or you know what I'm saying? And you got different people have different styles of playing. I have a very different style too, and I wanted to have a different style. I didn't want to sound like everybody's coming on, do this, do, 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 do. And then if I can't come on and sound exactly like that, then I'm supposed to not be good, and that's not true, because what if I sound good? I do the same notes and I sound good, but I don't sound exactly like the other guitar player. I don't want to sound exactly like the other guitar player. What's the point? But if I have to compare my style to a jazz player when I play jazz, Grant Green, man. I was listening to his licks and stuff, and he used a lot of the same stuff that I use, man. And I thought that was just amazing because I really haven't I didn't really hear of him until just recently. But I played this way for years. When I played jazz, I sounded like Grant Green, but at that time when I was doing it, I didn't know who Grant Green was. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's pretty amazing. Um, how two people can have similar styles and not even know each other, and not even know of each other. You know, so yeah, that's one of the points that I always try to make. About guitar players. Somebody look at me and say, "You don't sound like Tim Henson, so you can't play." Wait, Tim Henson developed his own thing. He's a fantastic guitar player. I'm a fan, but our styles are as different as night and day. I mean, we don't even play the same kind of music. I mean, for one thing, Mr. Henson plays flamenco style. I do not play flamenco style. I play, like jazz standards. I'm like a standard jazz guitar player. So, yeah, I never got that how somebody could disrespect another guitar player because he doesn't sound exactly like. That's a compliment. I don't sound exactly like so and so. I don't want to sound exactly like them. That's one of the weird things that I've been seeing lately. How people critique you based upon another guitar player that who has a completely different style than you. Oh, he's better than you. And what style? You know, maybe in his style he is better than me, but in my style I'm better than him. So it's the same thing with Larry Carlton and Steve Howe. If you put Steve Howe in Larry Carlton's style, and Steve Howe was trying to mimic Larry Carlton, I don't think it'd work. I don't think he could do it. And the same thing with Larry Carlton. He couldn't mimic Steve Howe. They could not mock each other and sound exactly like each other. They couldn't do it. Their styles are too different. You know what I mean? So one person might come along and hear a guitar player and think they're the best in the world. Another person might come along and say, well, they're pretty good, but I know people who are better and all that. I don't even judge like that. I just go by who can play and who can't play. You know what I mean? Because how many different styles are there out there? Mark Knopfler, Chet Atkins style. Mark Knopfler, when he played with Chet Atkins, it matched really well because that is kind of his style. So it's really hard to say, who's the best, man. It depends on. I'm a jazz person myself. When I listen to a guitar player, I like Larry Carlton because Larry Carlton can delve into the jazz and he can do it. You know what I mean? He can play the bebop and all that stuff. And like what I was just playing, the jazz standards, he can play the jazz standards too. Larry Carlton can play those too. So I do like Larry a lot. Um, I've never seen Steve Howe play the standards that I play, but I have seen him play jazz standards, but a different style of jazz standards. It's kind of like Reinhardt. Django Reinhardt is jazz standard, but it's a different type of jazz standard than what I'm into. I'm more like Grant Green, Charlie Christian, uh, sometimes Pat Martino. I can play Olio. I did know Olio note for note. I used to play it note for note. So Wes Montgomery was a phenomenal guitar player. I kind of say, I can hear a lot of Wes in Larry Carlton's playing, and which I like. So my style isn't really that much like Wes. I can do some of his stuff, but my lead solos are more parallel Grant Green and Charlie Christian and people like that. You know, so everybody kind of finds their niche in jazz, and you know what I mean, and sticks with it. That's what I've been doing. I found my niche, what I'm good at, the style that I'm good at doing, and I kind of stick with it. Not, that way, it sounds good. It just depends. Me personally, I would rather hear Grant Green than Steve Howe, man. I love Grant Green's guitar playing, and I we have similar styles. I can play a lot of Hank Garland, but that's kind of outside my style. I can play some things that are outside my style, but yeah. So that's the point I was trying to make, man. Is like, before people criticize somebody, think about the style that they play in. Do you like their style? If you don't like their style, then just don't go to their channel and watch them. Um, but if you do, of course, there's a lot of people that love the traditional style jazz. Like that's what I do. I play like the traditional style of jazz, soloing, um, and then modernize, kind of put my stuff into it too. So um, there's so many different guitar styles out there, though. So I try not to knock anybody because if they can play well, just if they can play well. I think Tim Henson is a phenomenal guitar player, but he's not really my style. But I do like him. I'm more of a jazz guy. I mean, I appreciate what he does. That flamenco stuff is very hard, and I do like it. But I like the more traditional jazz style better. Personally, for my personal preference, man, I could listen to Grant Green all day. I got him on my channel, as a matter of fact, on my playlist, and I just when I discovered that guy, I was like, wow, that guy was phenomenal. And it's just amazing how close our styles are. Jazz. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know there was a band that was doing that. Cause I had planned on doing that too. Jazz Sabbath. Yeah, I gotta check them out. That's a good idea. I think that's a very good idea. But now I was wanting to do that too. Kind of mix it. But the main thing I'm trying to do right now is when I form a band is I want to promote my beatnik jazz, modern beatnik jazz style because it's not like it's kind of like the old beatnik, but it's got rock in it, and it's like it sounds really good with a wah effect and stuff. So I like to do that. I was trying to do that. I was trying to promote that. Yeah, yeah, Crystal. I want to check that out. I'm gonna check that that out, man, because I want to see that Jazz Sabbath, man. That sounds like a good idea. It kind of fits. It's weird how that kind of fits, man. I always thought about that. What if Black Sabbath also played jazz, but progressive? You know what I'm saying? Like a rockish jazz, rockin' jazz. I always thought that would be really cool, man. There's a couple of songs that Tony did. He was a very good guitar player. He was actually a better guitar player than what people realize. There's a couple of those albums that he does do jazzy stuff, you know. So he was no slouch at the guitar. Tony Iommi was no slouch at the guitar. He could play it when he wanted to. I mean, he really played. So yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. All that stuff, man. You know, um, Jazz Sabbath. Do they have videos, Crystal? Does Jazz Sabbath have videos of? Oh, I gotta check that out. Fairies wear. Oh, really? Fairies wear boots. Jazz version of that. I gotta check that out, man. That sounds like. Yeah, that sounds like. Yeah, I gotta check that out. I gotta check that out. Called Jazz Sabbath, man. I'm gonna look. Matter of fact, when we get off here, I'm gonna look that up. That Jazz Sabbath, man. And yeah, I just wanted to see if I could like play those four jazz standards without stopping, man. Because that's what I'm trying to do. Because right now I'm practicing to where I want to get like 40 of them. It's gonna take me a while when I do that. It's gonna take me about a good 4 or 5 hours, do or maybe more. But I'm gonna get like 40 jazz tunes, just play them straight out live on here, just all the way through, no interruptions. When I get in the mood for it, I'm not in the mood for it tonight, but I'm gonna do that, you know. and just play all night, man. It might take me all night to do it, but it's gonna be a long ass video. But it's gonna be straight jazz, man. I'm just gonna play straight jazz all night. So I think that'd be cool. Um, yeah, man, I got to check that out. I know Page could play jazz. He didn't do it in concert. I only seen him do it one time in concert. Um, I don't know why he didn't. He never did it again. But I seen him one time, and him and John Paul Jones came out with a stand up bass, and him and Page were sitting on stage playing jazz. Man, I was like, wow, this sounded really good, really good. So Page was no slouch at the guitar, man. He could play when he wanted to. Uh, Sometimes though he got really stoned, and I think, you know what I mean. And he was so rich that sometimes I think he got a little lazy with it. But yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting. Um, I like that Dave Brubeck's out. That dude Dave Brubeck, the Take Five album. I like that. I can just like lay back and just dig, just groove to that song Take Five. Oh man, that was always one of my most favorite. That was always the coolest song, man. It's not that hard to play, but it's really just so cool, man. Just to, like lay back and just groove to it. I don't go by what's hard to play or what's easy to play or hard to play, but a lot of the jazz I do play is very it's very difficult to play. You have to really know theory and stuff like that. You know. Yep. Yep. Yeah, he would sometimes Page would he would get really stoned. That's what it was. You know, because he would. I went to Led Zeppelin concerts, and he would actually smoke weed with people in the audience, and even do drugs sometimes with people in the audience. Man, the guy was a stoner, man. Jimmy Page was a well, he really was a stoner, man. Sometimes he did drugs with people in the audience. So, but he was great. He was great. I can't knock him, man. Led Zeppelin was an awesome band. I went to see him a lot of times, and yeah, they were up there. They were considered my favorite band, and then Black Sabbath, and then I think it was Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple. Man, well, those were my Fab Three, and Heart. Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Heart were my favorite band. And Fleetwood Mac. I like them too, but Fleetwood Mac didn't play the hard stuff. But they were just like really progressive rock. Good stuff though. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I liked them when they. I liked that newer version of Deep Purple when Steve Morris was playing the guitar for him. I was always a Steve Morris fan, and when he hooked up with Deep Purple and they got him to play guitar for him, I thought, well, they're really going to be great because he's a technical player. Steve Morris can play anything, man. I don't know if you know who Steve Morris is, but Steve Morris is a fantastic guitar player, and he didn't just play rock; he played fusion and everything else. Man, he played anything. Steve Morris could play anything. So when I seen that he hooked up with Deep Purple, I thought, that's really going to be kick-ass band right there. So that was good stuff. Yeah, he did. He played different styles. He did some country stuff. Yeah, Steve Morris did some country stuff. He played jazz. He played fusion. He played a lot of different stuff, man. He was a great. Oh, stop, dude! Stop. Go lay down. But yeah, man. Rick Derringer was a great guitar player. I was a fan of his. But with all due respect, I seen him play like Room 335 with Larry Carlton, and he played pretty good, but it was kind of a mismatch, man. Because it's like I was talking about. You got two guitar players and their styles clash. You know, to me, it just didn't work for me, man. I didn't think that him and Larry really, you know, fit together as guitar players because Larry's style was just too jazzy for Rick. You know, Rick's more of a he's a progressive rocker, and he's great, but Larry is straight. He just tears into that jazz, and he really sounds. You know what I mean? He sounds amazing. He's an amazing jazz player. So when I seen him and Rick Derringer playing together, I thought, well, it sounds okay, but it didn't really work. Now, what blew me away is how it worked with when Larry Carlton and Steve Lukather from Toto. You ever heard of him, Steve Lukather? When Larry and Steve got together and played together, that was fantastic, man. And I was surprised when I first seen that title, Larry Carlton and Steve Lukather playing together. I thought, what? You know. But then I checked out the concert and I was like, damn, they made that shit work. Yeah, okay, okay. Phrygian mode and all that. I know those modes, man. Yeah, I know every mode there is and the alterations of them and stuff. Uh, yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Well, my thing isn't speed picking so much, although I can do it. My thing is expressive. Uh, you know, being very very expressive in my guitar solos. Like I'll do the rolls and the pull offs and you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. I do speed picking sometimes, but I try to be very. It's kind of like a saxophone player on the guitar. That's what I'm trying to do. When I play guitar, and I do my guitar solo, my guitar playing. I actually had a saxophone player tell me that. He said, "You play the guitar like somebody who's playing saxophone, only you're doing it with a guitar." Because he was doing these runs exactly like what I was doing. He said, "Man, that's how I learned jazz saxophone on these runs." And he said, "You're just shooting them out, and you say you don't even know what you're doing." He said, "That's the same jazz patterns that I practiced when I was learning jazz." I was like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, You're like a saxophone player on the guitar." That's what he told me. He said, "Your style is like a saxophone player on the guitar." So yeah. So Mike Stern, I think I have kind of a style like Mike Stern too. Mike Stern is a very great guitar player. I don't know if you heard of Mike Stern. Have you ever heard of Mike Stern, the jazz guitar player, Mike Stern? That's kind of that kind of parallels what I do. You know, there's Mike Stern and the old time Grant Green, and people like that. That kind of parallels my style now. If you're talking about in that area, I could get on stage with Mike Stern and sound pretty good, man. Because we would sound good together. I'm not saying I'm as good as him, but I think we would sound I think he would say that I'm good. You know, I'm not saying I'm better than Mike Stern. Mike Stern's famous. He's a renowned jazz guitar player. But I'm saying that I could hold my own with him. I think he would say, that you play well. You know, so I would love to jam with him, like somebody like Mike Stern or somebody like that. I seen Eric Johnson and Mike Stern jamming together, and yeah, they kind of sounded okay together, but their styles again, those are two completely different styles, man. And I love Eric Johnson, man. Don't get me wrong. I think Eric Johnson's fantastic. He's one of my favorite guitar players, just like Mike Stern. But their styles are like daylight and dark, man. So I don't think the two guitar players, if they have different styles, should really get on the stage together because it really don't work, man. In my opinion, I don't like to see that. I like to see two guitar players who have similar, at least somewhat similar styles, get on stage and trade licks, And I think that sounds good. And because a lot of times when they do that, if their styles clash so bad, it's just not gonna work, man. It was kind of like Jeff Beck playing with John McLaughlin, you know. And in my opinion, John's a fantastic guitar player, but in my opinion, Beck sounded better, you know. Whereas John's got the speed picking and everything, but Beck had the you know, the flavorful, all these different sounds he could get out of the guitar. In my opinion, he sounded better on stage than McLaughlin, but McLaughlin by himself sounded, you know, as good as Beck. So I think it was like clashing styles, man, because John was trying to come into Beck's style, you know, and it'd be kind of like Jeff Beck trying to go into John's style. He wasn't trying to play John's style. It was the other way around. John was trying to play Beck's style, and it was like kind of clashing styles. You know what I mean? So that happens sometimes, man. Guitar players jam together, and they have clashing styles. And I don't really think they should do concerts together. Now, I'll tell you a good concert was Larry Carlton with Robin Ford, and that's because Robin Ford's jazz funk kind of sounds like Carlton. And when those two got on the stage, they kicked butt. I thought they sounded really good together. So I love the guy. I think he's great by himself. I didn't like him. No, he's a fantastic guitar player. Electric Guitarist was my favorite. I really love that album, Electric Guitarist. Um, I think he was a phenomenal player, but his style. I mean, as far as speed picking, nobody can touch him, man. But the thing was, he played with Beck, and he was trying to play Beck's stuff, and his style clashed with Beck's style. You know what I mean? It'd be kind of like me trying to play, I don't know, somebody's outside of my style, or you know what I mean? What would happen if Eddie Van Halen jumped in and tried to play the Rain song for Led Zeppelin? Think about that. Now, Eddie Van Halen was a fantastic guitar player, one of rock's best, if not rock's best, as far as technical. You know, I'm not gonna say rock's best. I'm saying definitely one of rock's most technical guitar players was Eddie Van Halen. But can you imagine what if what? Okay, imagine. Go watch "The Song Remains the Same." The song remains the same from the movie, and think to yourself, what would happen if Jimmy Page was sick and Eddie Van Halen was there, and they threw Eddie Van Halen a double neck guitar and said, "Go out there and play Remains the Same." It's not going to work, man. It wouldn't have worked. So that's a good comparison of how styles are so different. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know. Like, well, that's more his style, though. See what I'm saying? The song remains the same. Eddie Van Halen playing the song remains the same on the double neck guitar. I don't see that, dude. I don't see that at all because that's kind of out of his style. I mean, Eddie's great, and technically, I guess in a lot of ways more technical than Jimmy Page, but his style is so much different. And Jimmy Page was just as good in his own style. They had two different styles. I don't care who's the more technical player. I'm talking about styles, man. Um, I'll give you an example. Randy Rhoads was a way more technical player than Tony Iommi. He was. He played more technical. But I like Tony's style better. I would rather hear Tony Iommi with Ozzy Osbourne than Randy Rhoads, just because of his style. He just had a certain way. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how to explain that, man. Everybody's like technical, technical, technical. But with me, yeah, it's nice that the person has the technical there, but I look a lot at style too. Uh, what kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain, man. It's like Tony Iommi's style just kicked ass, man. Go listen to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Go listen to Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Sabotage, those albums by Black Sabbath, and listen to Tony in those albums. and he just has this kick-ass style. He just got this sound. You know what I mean? I don't know, man. Exactly, yeah. Jimmy Page's things, yeah, was his riffs. I mean, he was like nobody could touch him as far as coming up with these creative riffs and stuff. Van Halen's thing was tapping and harmonics, tapping and harmonics. Nobody could compare to Eddie Van Halen and tapping and harmonics. Nobody could compare to Jimmy Page and riffing. You know what I mean? And I don't know, man. It's just a certain and style. I mean, I don't know. It's just hard to explain. You could take with me. You can take two guitar players, and one might be way up here technically, and the other one's kind of like right here technically. But I might like this one better because they have the one that's not as technical. Where he's not as technical, he came out with a killer style that's just so cool to listen to. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, yeah, I think so. I that's what I'm saying, man. I appreciate both of them. As for me, I like them both about equal, but in different ways. You know what I mean? You know what it is? Like if you're in the mood to hear some Van Halen, you put on Van Halen. You're in the mood to hear some Led Zeppelin, you put on Led Zeppelin. You know, you like them both about the same, but you don't want to put them together because their styles clash. You know, I could just it's just kind of like Jimmy Page and Eddie Van Halen would never share a stage together because their styles were so different. You know, it's like Ted Nugent and Peter Frampton. Oh man, I could imagine that. Ted Nugent and Peter Frampton sharing a stage together. That wouldn't work. That would sound weird. You know? Yeah, Steve Vai is a fantastic guitar player, and he plays at a highly technical level. And no, I like Steve Vai. I like him, but I think Joe Satriani has a better style. You know, for some reason, I just like Joe's style better than I do Vi. And Vi plays every bit as technical, but I still like Vi. I still think Vi is a fantastic guitar player. I'm still a fan. I think he's one of the best, and I can still listen to his music. I love his music. I love his music. He's among the greats. But I think Satriani's styles, in my opinion, I'm more partial to Satriani's style. You know, so it's kind of it's style with me, man. I mean, that's the thing about guitar playing, you know. And I used to wonder that when I was in the '70s, I was in a rock band, and I there was people like my style better than a lot of highly technical players. And I would say, man, this guy just blows me away. That's what I would think. I would think the other guitar player was way better, but then people would come along, well, your style's better. And I'm like, I didn't know what they meant, but now I can understand that from a perspective of looking at other guitar players and checking out their style. Sometimes a more technical guitar player doesn't have as good a style as the less technical player, you know. Uh, so yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's just it's weird, man. Music's weird, man. It really is, you know. Uh, So I just try to play well. I don't try to beat anybody when I'm playing the guitar. I just play well and I pick songs that are conducive to my style. You know. Um, so I don't know how to explain it. Some like as a musician, that's what you got to do. If you want to be good as a musician, you find you find songs that are conducive to your style. Because if you play outside your style, people are going to say it sucks. No matter how you can, I've played songs that were note for note, note for note, but I would think that sounds like shit, and the artist would do it, and I would think, why does he sound good and I don't sound good? It's because we have completely different styles, you know. So I don't know, man. I don't know how to explain that, man. That's weird. Uh, yeah, 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 yeah. That's true. And somebody that doesn't even play the guitar. Um, exactly, man. I had girlfriends that I was with this girl for a long time, and she used to say I played better than Jimmy Page. That she liked me better than Jimmy Page, and I'm like, what? He's famous. I'm not better than Jimmy Page, but she liked my style that much, man. I don't know. Some people, different folks like different things, man. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It's just like when you're playing out too. If you're with a band and you're playing out, you don't want to go into a club that doesn't where they don't like your style of music because they're not gonna like it. You know what I mean? It's like when I was playing with a blues band, Crossroads Blues Band. We went into a straight hard rock bar and got a gig there, and I was thinking to myself, that's going to be a disaster. I know these rock tunes, but the lead singer of the band was straight blues, and he didn't play hard rock. So they start calling out all these rock tunes, and we ended up packing up and leaving. And I kind of knew it would be a disaster. I was trying to tell him, man, hey, we better not play here because this is a hard rock bar. They're going to be wanting to hear ACDC. That's what kind of thing they were getting into: ACDC, Black Sabbath, um, Metallica, Pantera, stuff like that. So we go in there playing blues, they're gonna be like, "What?" You know what I mean? It'd be like, yeah, it's kind of not gonna work. Yeah, yeah, they were pretty good, the Doobie Brothers. But now, one thing I can say, man, that it's not the nice thing about jazz is, and you can tell people this, and it makes them mad sometimes, but it's the truth. Not everybody can get it. Not everybody can get it. I've seen progressive players who were very, very technical players, but they couldn't play jazz worth shit. They did not sound jazzy. They did not. They just did not sound like jazz. In my opinion, Steve Howe's not a jazz guitar player. He's not a jazz guitar player. He's more like a classical, progressive, maybe progressive, yeah, progressive guitar player, and I love his guitar playing, but he's not a jazz guitar player. Guys like Grant Green, George Benson, Pat Martino, Larry Carlton, when he's playing straight jazz, those guys are jazz players. You know what I'm saying? And you listen to them, and you go listen to another guitar player that's great. Even John McLaughlin isn't really a jazz player. He's not a jazz guitar player. He's a progressive. He's a very progressive player. But in my opinion, the type of jazz that I like, he's not really a jazz guitar player. So that's how I see it, man. It's kind of like a country guy. I seen this guy. I mean, he's just totally Albert Lee. Okay, take Albert Lee for example. He's a fantastic guitar player, but he doesn't sound anything like Pat Martino. If he would have went into a bar where Pat Martino was playing, a club where Pat Martino was playing, uh, you know, he I don't think they would have liked him, man. They were like, "What are you doing, man? He's playing all these country licks." They don't care about how technical. They'd be like, "What are you doing here, man? This is a jazz bar. We don't like country here." You know what I'm saying? You can go in some clubs like a straight jazz club and you start playing country. People are like, "What? We don't like country here." Or go in a straight jazz club and play hard rock and they're gonna kick you out, man. They're gonna be like, "We don't want to hear that." On the same by the same token, if a straight jazz, I'm talking about straight jazz band goes in a hard rock bar and starts playing straight jazz, it's probably not going to work. Although it might, because jazz is kind of universal. That's really why I like jazz. It's kind of more universal than other styles of music. So, you know, um, yeah. But the thing about jazz is that if you really know it well, you can play any kind of music, really, because jazz contains everything in it. Any type of scale, mode, alteration of a scale or mode that you can mention, I know it because I'm a jazz player. That's the good thing about. I'm talking about really learning jazz standards. I'm not talking about playing jazzy. I'm talking about where you can actually play jazz standards. I can play jazz standards. I'm talking about where you can actually play jazz standards, not just jazzy. Um, there's a lot of scales, modes, alterations of scales and modes. It's like we put everything, including the kitchen sink in. Go listen to Donna Lee, and tell me that that's not hard to learn. Try play that on a guitar. Try to play Donna Lee. I'm talking about all the way through. Try to play Donna Lee on the guitar. That's tough, man. So jazz throws every single thing that you can think of into it. You know, a metal player might be able to outspeed pick me, but when it comes to phrasing and stuff like that, jazz phrasing, he might not be able to do that. You know what I mean? Where he might beat me in speed picking, I can come up with these jazz phrases that he doesn't know. And I can find scales and modes that he doesn't know. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like we should just respect each other for what we do. That's the point that I try to make to people because, yeah, yeah. He like country and she likes metal. Yeah, exactly. Different people like different things. You know, I've seen people who said they didn't like jazz. Uh, Me, I love it. I love jazz, but I also love rock. I love the rock that I do like the most is classic rock. I'm more partial to back in those days. In the classic rock days. And grunge. Those classic rock and grunge. Those are my two favorite types of rock that I like. And you talk about eras. In the 1970s, the big thing for the rock bands was to come up with simple rhythms but complicated guitar solos. But in the 90s, it was reversed. In the 90s, they came up with very complicated rhythms but simple guitar solos. And I think that's weird. You know, isn't that weird? Because grunge music, if you listen to the rhythm sections and a lot of that grunge music, it's hard to play. It's hard to play that rhythm. But then you listen to the guitar solo and you think, what? That's simple shit. But then you go back to the 1970s and you hear a basic rhythm and you think that rhythm is so easy to play. But then the guy does the guitar solo and it just blows your mind because it's so difficult to play. So, it's like two different eras of rock. And I like them both. I think that I think it was amazing what they did in the 90s. Stone Temple Pilots was, man, dude, yeah. Oh my God. That was a great band. Stone Temple Pilots and Soundgarden. Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, and all those guys, man. Pearl Jam, all those guys, man. I think STP was Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains were my two favorite grunge guys, though. I gotta admit, right? How do you feel about that? I think Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains were the two best grunge bands of the 1990s, man. As far as progressive playing, their music was very hard to play. But Nirvana had complicated rhythms. He he would come up with some really difficult rhythm sections, man, sometimes in his music. His guitar solos wasn't hard at all, but the rhythms were tricky. So I give him credit where credit's due. And he had a singing style that was unmatched. I don't know how he did that with his voice, man. It's just, there you go, style again, man. Kurt Cobain, man. I was a big Kurt Cobain fan. He's great. Um, it's a shame what happened to the guy. I was a huge fan of his, you know. And what was that guy's name? Chris from Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains and those guys, man. They were just like they were phenomenal, man. Yeah, Jar of Flies. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Yep, yep, yep. Good music, man. Good music. Yeah, man. You just don't, you don't see creativity like that every day, man. Where bands can come up with stuff like that, and then that's the key to being successful is not necessarily being the most technical player in the world. Tom Petty. Tom Petty's guitar player could do it. He could play highly technical if he wanted to, but when he played with Tom Petty, a lot of times his guitar solos were pretty easy to do, but he would come up with a sound that was just so kick ass that everybody loved it. He had a style that was just so, you know what I mean? Just fit Tom Petty so well. So that's pretty much how I feel. It's like the style has to be conducive with the band too. It doesn't. So technical ability alone isn't. Um, I mean, if you want a really highly technical guitar player, you go check out Frank Gambale. But you know what I mean. I love Frank guitar. I love Frank's guitar playing. He's a fantastic guitar player. Yeah, I can't really say anything bad about Frank. He's phenomenal. You know. Uh, but that's a really technical guitar player right there, Frank Gambale. Uh, Plays impossible guitar, and he came up with that style too. I like Frank because he did come up with a different style along with his technical ability. I like all those guys, Frank Gambale, Scott Henderson. Scott Henderson I thought was just fantastic, man, fantastic. Yeah, yeah. What? Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Sometimes you do. You have to have a style that matches the music, man. It has nothing to do with technical ability. It has very little to do with technical ability in that sense when you're playing with other people. It's more about although sometimes some bands did have both, but Mark was a phenomenal guitar player. Mark Knopfler, yeah, from Dire Straits, phenomenal, man. Uh, we kind of got I play a little bit of his stuff too, but we got different styles. And I never really delved into it like seriously. I just learned some licks from him and stuff because I'm more of a jazz player. He was more he's more like a Spanish or Latin style than I am, but I'm more of a straight jazz, you know. So I just touched on his music. I never really delved into it because we know he's I can do it. I can do it. I played it enough to show that I can do it. But our styles are so different, man. I mean, yeah. But my jazz style, just go listen to Grant Green and you'll know what I'm talking about. Listen to my music and listen to Grant Green. Listen to my guitar. So I mean, Grant Green didn't use no effects like I do, but you listen to Grant Green's his phrasing and stuff like that, and we got similar styles. Yeah, he's clean. He's real clean. He plays clean. But a lot of our phrasing is pretty much. Yep. Uh, yeah. There's a lot of great guitar players though, and I don't doubt anybody, man. I would never go on somebody's channel and say I'm better than you, and that's so immature to do that, you know. And what style, you know? Cut. There was a guy that did it. I was a lot younger. He kept saying he was better than me, and I said okay. So I invited him to a jazz club. He didn't know it was a jazz club. And there was a jazz band up there playing, and they invited us to come up and play the guitar. And he just sat there looking around. He didn't know what we were doing. I was following him perfect. I was playing solos, jazz solos. He didn't know what we were doing. But yet he could smoke me in like if we're playing Van Halen stuff, he could smoke me at that, you know. But I took him in a jazz club. I said, "Okay, you're better than me. Come on, let's go check this jazz club. Let's check this club out." He didn't know what I was doing, so we went, and the guy knew me, JJ. He invited me up to play, and I said, "Hey, man, my friend wants to play guitar too. You don't mind, do you?" No. So he comes up to play, and he's just sitting there looking around while I'm playing. And he got pissed. I never seen a dude no more after that. Well, why would you do that? People are strange, man. They really are. And what style is somebody better? I don't say I'm better or worse than anybody, man. I say I'm a jazz player. You know. Yeah, and the thing is, I could go in any jazz club where they play standards, and I'll be at home. I'll be at home in a jazz club. You take me in a jazz club that plays jazz standards and get me up on stage, I'm at home. I know what's going on. You know what I mean? That's my forte right there. But I gotta let my dog out. He's going crazy. But hey, man, thanks guys for checking me out again, man. I appreciate that. Peace. I'll see you again. I'll be on here again.